What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to discuss this new PlayStation 5 potential AI that could sell you microtransactions. So this is based off of a patent that was filed or at least discovered in late January, but I think it's taken people a little while to piece together what exactly it could mean. Now, about a year ago, or in 2019 in general, the word on the street was Sony was developing this AI, okay, for I guess in general, but it was kind of assumed, or at least part of it was assumed, that it would make the leap to PS5, that the PS5 was going to have some sort of artificial intelligence that's going to help you with games, okay? Now, again, this is a Sony-wide thing, but just thinking about how it affects the PS5 is specifically what we're going to be talking about in this video, but that was the word on the street. It was going to kind of be like an Alexa or like those kind of things, but Sony's own version, okay? And again, it was designed, or at least what the patent was kind of reading as, it was supposed to be helping you kind of like get through things. Now, the new patent, again, was filed late January, at least discovered in late January, and it's a little alarming. And even me, I love PlayStation. I'm buying the PS5 day one. I don't think it's hard to look at our channel and say, like, we kind of favor PlayStation. It's not necessarily we favor it. It's more like we just own it and we play a lot of their games, and I love a lot of the games, so I just make a lot of videos on it. So, you know, and this should show you that I'm not necessarily biased. I'm willing to call out PlayStation when they give me a reason to. And this one is a little scary. So, again, like, there's a picture. I think I'll show you guys the picture of what it's supposed to be designed to do. It gives an example of, like, 80% of people will, like, figure out, or 80% of people beat a boss this way. I can see how it's supposed to be educational and say, like, hey, this is how, you know, this person beat it, and you know, this is maybe how you should be able to beat it, and maybe that's going to tell you through a microphone, which has been reported that there will be, again, like a way for the controller to speak to you, okay, the new PS5 controller. So it does line up in that way, but a thing that now is kind of coming out is that it's going to recommend microtransactions for you to beat it. So it'll recommend DLC. It'll recommend, like, hey, people use this, and this is just an example. People use this weapon most of the time to beat this boss. You don't have this weapon. Let me link you really fast to the PlayStation Store where you can buy this weapon. That is a little alarming. Now, people are there's a couple different angles people are looking at this. One of which is a little bit of like a scarier, kind of like a creepy thing where it's like, well, that kind of means like the PlayStation 5 and Sony in general is going to be monitoring pretty much everything you're doing in a game, because they need to have a really good understanding of how you play a game in order to then recommend. It's honestly, it's a little bit of the same creepy nature, which this is creepy about YouTube itself, right? It knows everything you're doing. It keeps track of all the videos you're watching, so it can recommend, like, hey, I think you'll like this video because you've watched this one. And how does it know that? It's because it has access to you, and it knows the kind of videos that you've clicked on, which is, when you step back and think about it, I mean, it's an invasion of privacy. You allow them to do that when you sign up, and it's going to be the same thing for PS5. I wonder, that's the thing. There's two ultimate things with this. Is one, I wonder if they're going to ask you if you can enable this or not enable this with the PS5. And secondly, to again, like, slam the brakes down really quickly, this isn't confirmed that it's on the PS5. This is a patent. This is something that Sony has now, like, marked, like, okay, we have this, but they don't have to implement it on the PS5. So if you're over there now, like, freaking out, being like, oh my god, my PS5 is spying on me, it's going to recommend me microtransactions every 5 seconds. Again, first thing to note is we don't know for sure it'll be on the PS5. I think it's too big of a leap, both from, like, a technological point of view and from a privacy point of view. I think it's a pretty big leap for Sony to just introduce this feature for the PS5 and expect people to be okay with it. I do not think people will be okay with it. I think they're going to get a lot of backlash, and maybe they need that in order to say, all right, well, we were wrong. We'll take out most of it. Maybe we'll leave a little, and that's what I kind of think. It doesn't mean it has to be on the PS5. It means that this is something Sony's looking at as a whole, like Sony, not PlayStation. Sony is looking at as a whole, and maybe they'll implement a little bit of it in the PS5, and then maybe for the PS6 they'll do a little, and then by the PS7, like, yeah, they're going to just know every little detail. They'll be able to tell you this and that. I like the base idea. I like the idea of the game monitoring itself, because if you think about it, developers do that all the time too, right? Like, developers know what percentage people play of their game. That's why developers always kind of come out and say, like, single player games, really people only make it 20, 30, 40% of the way through single player games. Very few percentage of people beat the game. How do they know that? Well, there's internal, like, the developers just know there's internal things in their games where when you put it into their PS4 or your PS4 and you play it, they're collecting all this data that these people are, even things in multiplayer games like Call of Duty, like, how they'll come out and they'll say, like, this amount of people used this gun this week, or these amount of deaths were registered. Like, how do they know that? It's because there's all these basically hidden things that they're tracking all the information. So it is already, in a way, happening where these things are being recorded and being monitored. Basically, they're kind of being collected right now. They're not being looked at till later. And what this is kind of pushing that to the forefront and saying, okay, well, we're going to be monitored, like, not them, like, there's not going to be a person behind a screen, but, using technology, there's going to be a system in place where it's monitoring what you're doing, and it's going to be like, hey, you're stuck at this spot. Well, that sucks, but you know what? I have a way for you to get around it. And you know what? That basic principle, I like that, because honestly, I think for some games I'm really good. For other games, I struggle with that. I think that's just the case for most people, right? We're not all perfect. I do actually like games that will tell me, that will kind of give me verbal hints when I'm stuck. If you're looking for, like, a place to go, and then the person will, like, say some sort of form of dialogue that'll kind of hint at where you're supposed to go. I like that. And honestly, what this patent sounds like, just from the base of it, it sounds like it's just taking that to a new level, where now, like, maybe you didn't hear the person say that, or maybe it's so difficult that even the person telling you won't even be able to figure it out from that. And then PlayStation jumps in and says, hey, like, here's what you should do, or hey, other people figured it out this way. I like that basic idea. But if you're going to connect it to microtransactions, where you're going to say, well, most people beat it with this sword, and then it's like, all right, well, that's fine. Well, maybe I'll just go find it. And then but the game's like, no, we'll link you to the sword, and then you can buy it there. It's like, well, why can't I just find it in the game? Like, I don't need you to link me to, oh, we're already at the PlayStation Store. Okay, great. You know what I mean? So it doesn't need to take that step. And that's honestly something I think you could just erase, and it wouldn't be, like, it would still be creepy if you think about it, I guess, right? Again, same thing with, like, the YouTube stuff. It would still be creepy that the game literally knows what you're doing, and then PlayStation's willing to jump in and say, well, here's all the data we've collected from our time, right? That's still a little out there, but technology advances, it's honestly just going to kind of be something that's going to happen. We're going to have to just accept that part. But then if it's going to say, okay, well, let's offer you a $5 deal on this thing and you can buy it, and say that happens like every 20 minutes, like, that's a deterrent. You're going to turn off your PlayStation when that happens. You're going to say, you know what? I'm not dealing with it. I don't want pop-up screen, and it's not going to necessarily be pop-up, but I don't want it constantly taking me out of the game or offering me like a link or something. I press, like, the triangle button, and it's going to send me to the PlayStation Store to buy something. I don't want that every hour, right? I don't want that at all, and that's something that's going to turn people off. If they have the PlayStation, they'll turn it off. They'll buy an Xbox. They'll not play that game, or people that are thinking about it, about buying a PS5 will be like, well, I don't want that kind of thing in my life. Like, I'm not doing that. So it honestly is a very big potential problem. Again, it's not confirmed. It's not a thing that's absolutely going to happen, but it's a thing we have to be able to monitor and be willing to call out when it happens, or if it happens, right? It's, again, the basic premise. I have nothing wrong with it. I don't even think it's a bad thing. I like the idea of, I guess, PlayStation jumping in and saying, hey, here's some cool stat, because I don't even know, because that kind of is an endless thing. Like, I don't even know what you could do with that, right? I'm just giving an example, and they even just gave an example of, like, 80% of players beat this boss this way. But, like, it could go so much more than that, right? I don't know how detailed they can possibly get to help you out, but I like the idea of them helping you up. Not every game does that. Some games you could just be wandering around forever and they'll never kind of give you a audio clue or a camera clue or whatever as to what you're supposed to do. Some games don't do that. Some games do, but some games don't. And so for those games that don't, that's a very helpful feature. But if it's going to hurt it even more by, again, and one website even said, like, yeah, it's, I guess, good for, like, DLCs, and maybe they could do that. Maybe I'd be okay with that. So, like, you're playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and then maybe you do something, and at some point PlayStation recognizes and says, hey, just so you know, and I'm talking about, like, if Horizon, the first game, was on PS5, maybe they could be like, hey, just so you know, Frozen Wilds. Like, there's a DLC for this game, and here's like the thing. Like, here's the link. Like, I guess that's like self promotion in your own game. That's a little like, I guess you could. That's already technically in the beginning of the game, right? Where you could just buy it, like because it has it, and it's kind of like blurred out, or it's like black and white, and you could click it, and then you go and buy it because you don't have it, so it recognizes that. So I don't know why you would need to do that in the base game itself as well, but I guess it's their decision to do it. So it's, again, it's a scary thing. It's something we have to be willing to call out, but it's not confirmed. This is a patent. It doesn't have to be implemented in the PS5, so we'll just have to wait and see. But guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think this is something that could be potentially terrifying, but a very big detractor of people getting the PS5? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching. We cover PlayStation all the time, PS5, as we get closer and closer. When that reveal event comes, or if anything else comes about this patent, I'll cover it as well, okay? So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.